We're live.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is our final Hangout on Air. It's just the three of us getting together. I'm Josh Spray.
Sonia Servin.
Sammy Fillmore.
All right, welcome. We're supposed to be discussing the Amazing Grace movie. I personally had never seen it before, but I've always wanted to. And I'll be honest, when I saw that it was 2 hours long and I had a few other finals going on, I was just like, I really don't want to see this movie. But after watching it, I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually shed a few tears. It was a really good movie, I thought. And there's a lot of actors in there, like Dumbledore, right? There's a few actors in there that I hadn't seen in other movies. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Question number one is, what doctrine in Wilbur's heart drove him to advocate? And then it says, why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in your heart, to be passionate and persistent? So I will stop talking and we can converse.
I'll go. So I just said that he believed in human rights and that everyone deserved to have their freedom and to not be owned by someone else. And then in regards to why it's important to have it in your heart, because when something's in your heart, it's behind all that you do. If you don't care for something, there's no way you're going to be passionate or persistent about it. And so if it's in our hearts, then we have the deepest dedication to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's no question that he was advocating um, abolition of slavery. I just I think it's really important that we have that passion in our hearts and that persistence because it's not easy. That movie, I just would just fall back, and he had to be persistent or else that change wouldn't have occurred. Other people didn't have the motivation that he had to advocate for what he wanted, and we need to show that persistence and passion and inspire others to follow our cause as well.
Yes, I wrote down like being passionate and persistent with like in our cause, the family advocacy. We're gonna lose a lot of battles, like like Wilbur lost, countless battles every single day, and but in the end he won the war, right? We know who's going to win the war is Christ, and family is at the center of the plan. So we need to do our part to advocate for the family. And I really think in the future, I don't know if it's sooner or later, somebody somewhere is going to make a huge difference like Wilbur did, and like really change the world's perspective on why family is important, because things are going to get a whole lot worse. But um, yeah, you just need to be passionate and persistent. Okay, anything else? Moving on. We have 11 questions here. How did Wilbur employ a theoretical approach to become a more effective advocate? Identify at least one thing in each system and be specific. And they're talking about the Bronfenbrenner models, the different systems, the individual microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and the macro system. So who wants to start?
I can start us off. I kind of applied it. Maybe you guys came up with other ideas, but for the microsystem, I just brought up how he um, had a new group of friends, a new support system in the beginning where he was thinking about becoming a preacher, but then the prime minister to be brought over all the people to his house. I thought that was really cool, and how he connected with them, and that became his support system. For the mesosystem, how he reached out around him was he debated with men that were, I guess it was for all of their country, but he debated with men in the country. And for EXO, I kind of talked about how he had a hard time with the pending war in France and how the money and industry that the slave trade brought to the country made it really hard for him to advocate what he wanted to because of those feelings and the culture. And for the macro, I said he had a hard time because of the held on beliefs, because of the government and the culture that it's okay to have slaves. Then a lot of the people in the government had slaves, and they think if just things like that. What do you guys think? Are you guys a little more clear?
Um, this was like the worst question, by the way. I kind of had a mix of yours too in there, Sonia, as well. You know, I talked about in the microsystem how he was able to educate his family and friends, like his future wife heard about what he was doing and his cousins. Um, and then in the mesosystem, I talked about how he had a chance to also advocate there when he went to live with his cousin and he stopped in the road and he was talking to those guys about beating their horse. Um, and then on the exosystem, when he would go, what I forget exactly like what was happening, but I remember that him talking about like gathering all this stuff from other cities, all these signatures. And then I talked about the impending war in France, putting a damper on his plans. And then how he, for the macro system, how he was, you know, I'm assuming that's like a country level where he's in there challenging the lords and the noblemen, and they're, you know, not letting him abolish slavery.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I had too. Um, yeah, I put that like in the micro his future wife and then his wife. She was with him from day one. Signed up for all of his different causes, not just the slavery one, but he had tons of different things. Um, he influenced his friends in the gambling hall. That was the meso system, and you guys already touched on a whole bunch of other things. I liked also that lawyer who came back from, I think, Africa, and he said that the people there were talking about King Wilbur and how he was gonna, come and save them. I thought that was pretty cool for the exosystem. He had influence that way, and everybody, heard about this Wilbur guy who was gonna save them. So that gave him even more, and then gave everybody else more of a drive. Oh man, these people are expecting us to be like superhuman. So that was pretty cool. And then, of course, like the only thing I came up with for the macro system was him against government, and those people trying to, abolish slavery. All right, question number 3. How did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? Anybody want to go first?
I can.
Okay.
So one thing that they did was that they had all their opponents board that slave ship. It was at the Madagascar, and they gave them kind of a tiny taste of what it was like and the smell, which I can imagine was disgusting. Um, but then also Wilbur put himself in that tiny little box, like just to kind of, do his research, and so he could recognize and see what kind of space the slaves had on the ship. And I think, just to kind of persuade those on the fence, like they did a really good job of knowing their opponents, and they were informed on all accounts, and they were also relentless in their efforts, and so that I'm sure changed a lot of people.
I love I love the things that you brought up, Sammy. I didn't think of them, but they really impressed me when I was watching the movie. And the one that I thought of was the first-hand account of the black friend of the priest. I can't remember his name. I should, because he's important. Siegler, or it's something with the C. But I really thought he had a power, just the way his words were formed, just put a beauty, but was like a beautiful, sad story that anyone can feel sympathy towards. And I also provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence. Well, I'm not sure if this applies, but I wrote down, looking at my notes, I wrote down how they helped start anger that was made by slaves, and just how they came together in their little building and talked about what they can do to make a change in Parliament. And I thought that was really their research by coming together and sharing their ideas.
Oh, great answers. I don't know if I can add to that. The only thing I put a little bit different was, instead of using just their testimony and their firsthand accounts, that lawyer guy came back with a lot of evidence, like facts and statistics, and that's huge. Like we see, and we'll get to that in the next, I think, question 6 with Marsha Barlow. But they didn't just use their conviction and their passion; they used facts to get into the minds of everybody else, because not everybody is sold on God. Not everybody's sold on, hey, this is a good idea. They need to see facts and statistics, and that's something that Wilbur had to see. He had to see those shackles on the table and all those people to actually believe that it was happening. He had to see to believe instead of have faith. Question number 4. How does the film portray the importance of working together as a group? What has family advocacy group work taught you? I'll go first. I think each character in the movie contained a certain set of skills and influence with his or her own circles. By working together, their influences change the world. And I think, like, our small group, like, we have 6 team members. We did a lot of good in like 2 weeks period. We have over 1,000 people on our Facebook account. And like, I was looking at the United Families International. They've been around since 1978, and I'm sure they've been on Facebook for several years, but they have, I counted 3,275 people on their Facebook account. Like, I don't know. Like, I think we could, like, if we stuck with this thing, I think we could be like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in like 5 or 10 years if we got more people to do what we've been doing, right? But it's important to stick together, to spread the news, and to join with other groups of like-minded individuals, right? Wilbur got that more celebrity type guy, the Dumbledore guy. Remember him? He's like high up on the Senate or whatever the government is. Yeah. They introduced him, but they had to wait to make it more effective. And then, it was like a spillover of awesomeness. But that's that.
For that one, I think that there were some key points of the movie that utilized group, and they wouldn't have been effective. Wilbur wouldn't have been effective if it wasn't for the support of his friends. It was the help of his friends that helped him to get slavery abolished. Like, they needed that guy to talk about the flags on the ships, and then he bought all those tickets for those people. That was really funny. Um, but then, what guy was it that was on his bed? Was he like dying, and he was like giving him all this advice on how to, to abolish slavery, and that who knows how long it would have taken without him. And so I think, it's taught me that we need others to make our ideas successful sometimes. Maybe we need their initial idea to get the ball rolling, and or we need certain skills like Josh had to, get our website up and going. But just to reach the full potential of the project, sometimes we need others. A lot of the times, I'm sure we need others.
Yeah, I just brought up both the exactly same things you guys had said. I brought up how when we're in a group, more ideas are tossed around and you bring new skills to the group, and also like what Sammy said, that when you're advocating for something, you need a support system to keep you going, especially when you're advocating for something. It means not everyone agrees with it, and it means there's going to be hard times, and there are plenty of hard times. That even that one time I thought that he had given up. Of course he didn't, because I knew that slavery was abolished, but his wife really got him back on his feet, and I thought that was so amazing how she motivated him. And I just think that motivation of friendship and knowing that other people agree with you, that you aren't alone and that you can do it, that's extremely important when you're advocating. That way you don't get hopeless. It's not a good thing to be.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. His wife was a huge factor in his recovering, right? Because it literally destroyed his health and mental stability. Um, all right, good job. Number 5, what parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni in Alma 46, the title of Liberty? Let's see, what is a Christian and a professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? How can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices?
Between Wilbur and Captain Moroni, they're both advocating freedom. Wilbur was advocating freedom for the slaves, and Moroni was advocating that the people stand up for their freedom so that they don't lose it. And I think that's something that we're fighting for a lot these days, is we're trying to keep the freedoms that we have. And for the second part, what's a Christian and a professional family advocate? It's just someone, well, like Wilbur, I'll just say, it's how did Wilbur exemplify that? He believed in God, and he knew that he wanted to help God and support and just tell everyone that God exists. But he was conflicted because he wanted to also help abolish slavery. And I loved it when his friend said, why don't you do both? Because it is doing both. It's God. That's what God wants, is for us all to be free and to live within his means and his laws. And just, I think that we can be effective Christ-like agent against loud and degrading voices by just feeling the Spirit, and instead of putting down their ideas, raising our ideas on a flag and running with them. Just saying, this is what I believe in. You can have your own beliefs, but I know that my beliefs what lead to happiness and truth, and I know that personally in my life. And I think that's an important part of being a Christ-like advocate.
I had stuff on the same lines as you, Sonia. Wilbur was willing to fight for the things that he believed in, and he was bold, and he didn't back down, even when he knew that those people were wrong in their thinking and that they were oppressive. And Moroni was the exact same way. He wanted the freedoms, just like Wilbur did, and he stood for the things that the Lord had told him were correct. And I think as a Christian advocate, you kind of going back to the first question, like you have God in your heart and at the center of your beliefs, but to be professional, kind of going to the next question, like you can change your language in order to still be professional, but still maintain your religious advocacy message and position. Um, and then for the last question, I just put, um, it comes to turning back to God. We're promised that if we're on the Lord's side, we might lose a few battles, but we're gonna win the war, and we won't fail. And because God wins every time, and maybe that seems simple, but if we're constantly going to Him in prayer and turning to Him for answers and advice, then we'll succeed. And it made me think of when we had to debate with those other girls that are not in our group about, what was it? I don't know, religion. Oh yeah, the religion. And in his article, Elder Oaks said that we need to be loving and patient with others. And so even though that might be hard, I think that's also a Christ-like way to be an advocate.
Yeah, I think that both Wilbur and Captain Moroni, they knew their craft, they knew what they were passionate about, and it's clear that the Lord like guided them in their words and also in their actions. They're willing to do what it takes, against all odds to make it happen. And they did remain humble. Like I like I think it was the very last scene with the Dumbledore guy. I can't remember his name. I'm just gonna keep calling him Dumbledore. When he talks about Napoleon and how when he gets home he's going to be celebrated and for basically winning the war. But there's people like Wilbur who won't get recognized like that, but he won an even bigger war that you know it's changed the world because he's honest, he has integrity, they're kind, and he has a lot of love for everything, including his little creatures, right? Animals. That's kind of fun. Yeah, Wilberforce. I thought they kept saying like Wilberforth, but it's Wilberforce. That was pretty cool. We touched a little bit about question number 6. Marcia Barlow spoke on persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbur and others exemplify any of Marcia's ideas? How so? Go ahead.
I feel like he really made it personal to the audience when he had brought out all those signatures of the people that signed the petition, and he was debating with that one guy that he was debating with throughout the whole movie. They were both at the stand screaming at each other. He's like, this doesn't matter, and then he just said, these are people, and then the other guy was like, people? And it was just really powerful. Like, it's like that in that moment, the other guy noticed that slaves are people. And I know that's such a horrible theme, but he was really strong trying to get across his ideas. And he also did more than just saying ideas. He brought forth information. I really loved how when he would go to the church to talk with the man who was the captain of the slave ship, and then he decided to and he wrote up his biography of everything that happened on those slave ships. I thought that would be something really powerful that he could use to portray the importance of abuse that the slaves were going through.
Yeah, I always wondered why a lot of black people sing Amazing Grace. Like my family, our kids are adopted, And in the church, there's this group called the Genesis Group. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. It was established uh, back in, I think, the 60s and 70s, when a lot of the blacks were having, uh, they were joining the church, but they couldn't hold the priesthood. So the church allowed them to create this group called Genesis Group of like-minded individuals, but to come and still sing their songs of praise from their the black culture and so forth. And they still do it today, like once a month. You go up there, it's like a sacrament meeting pretty much, and everybody's invited. But you go and you stand in the chapel and you sing clap your hands and sing all these cool songs. But they sing Amazing Grace a lot, and I always wondered, but now, like after I watched this movie, I'm like, oh, well, that makes total sense now. That guy helped free. He was a big proponent in abolishing slavery, like Martin Luther King. But anyway, history lesson. Anything else?
I had a lot of what you guys had, but I like that he had that black slave, or I don't remember what his name is, just like you said. But he had firsthand stories about what it was like riding a slave ship, and so I think that brought a lot to it. He used facts and statistics, but he didn't really bring religion into it either, even though that helped shape his argument. But it didn't discredit his argument because, he found that roundabout language. But yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, another thing I was going to add, I also liked, not just Wilbur, but a lot of his friends. They were persuasive, and their different personalities and the way that they got along with people or didn't get along with people helped. All right, question number 7. What role did the government policy and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Do you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? Answer all of these questions. I'll go real quick. I think their political system is pro-family, but only for their race and status of people, right? They only cared about themselves and their families, but they didn't recognize people of another color or even another place. They didn't really care about them. They didn't recognize them as actual people until later, right? But yeah, government played a big. Obviously, they were the ones holding everything back from having the slaves be free. So.
I said the government played a role in advocating for slavery. Obviously, they didn't want to pass the abolishment laws, but then they also rejected the policies that Wilbur tried to get passed. That one part of the movie where he's like, I've tried and tried, and I go back and I try to pass these policies, but I think Wilbur used his religious freedom to add depth to his cause. Like he wanted to be one or the other, but then he was both. Just kind of what you said, Josh. The political system was anti-family when it came to certain families, even though there wasn't anything really specific about families. Slavery split up the families, and they weren't always together. And even sometimes it came down to, like family members were killed on the boat because of the awful conditions. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said. And I talked a lot about government and politics and how the government wanted to keep the citizens of their country happy, and they didn't want to start a war with France, so they thought if they freed the slaves, then they wouldn't have anyone to work the plantations, and it would make their country weak, and the French would attack, and there's just a lot of things going into why the slave trade needed to stay, and it was hard for them to kind of stand up to those points until they had defeated the French after a battle that was a little more easy for them to portray their points. And also for policy, just he had a hard time passing those bills, and he was so happy just to get it in front of them the first time, and the next time he's like, it doesn't even matter, like nothing's gonna happen. I did all this and all these like little cultural things happened, but in reality nothing's happened. And that's when it was getting sad, but I knew that he was gonna do it, and he did. And I think that I viewed it, I think I read the last part of the question wrong because I was viewing it as the political system that they were trying to make. That's a cute dog, Josh. The political system that they were advocating for, that I said that it was pro-family because they because of the lawyer that was talking about the woman and her child and them being beaten, and the mother telling her daughter that Lord Wilberforce is going to come across the sea and save them. But I was talking about the side that Wilbur was on, not on the actual government side. So,
Great points. Okay. Do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well? How did you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christopherson spoke of? I'll go real quick. I just put Wilberforce used his time, talents, abilities, and everything which he is blessed with to helping feed the poor, like we saw in his butler comes out, somebody's here, a beggar's here. What should I do? Well, give him breakfast. And then he goes in his house later, to tell his maid in the kitchen, hey, I'm hosting people tonight, and she goes off and cries because they're hosting like 30 people. But it was pretty cool. He was willing to help those who needed food, shelter, clothing, and also more importantly a voice. Because he had an important voice and he was able to share that and be a voice for them.
I also thought he really did spend his time on Earth well. He thought of what God wanted from him, and he contemplated that when he was wanting to become a clergy man, but then his friends convinced him, and God also convinced him that what he needed to do was to stop the slave trade, and that would be supporting what God wants as well. And I thought that he gave all of his time, talents, and everything that he was given, because he wanted to stop many times. He didn't want to talk about it with his fiance just because it got him so frustrated, and that he saw no change. And even his friends were dying, and no change had happened, no permanent change anyway. But he still followed God's plan for him, and he prevailed, and he did what he needed to do.
I said a lot of the same things that you guys said. He was following the law of consecration. He spent his life well. He had interest and respect for others, and he had a lot of integrity, and he worked, and he wasn't violent, but he was able to serve his fellow men by helping them be free, and he was fighting for this really righteous cause. He gave everything he had.
Excellent. All right. Any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy?
In this question, I talked
I
about.
was thinking,
Oh, sorry. I talked about Wilbur's wife a lot, because she like was there for him, and she was there when he didn't have any strength. Even when they were dating, she was really supportive um, of her husband. I wrote that it was clear that Wilbur could lean on her, and he did, like physically and emotionally. Um, but I think about that in terms of like my own marriage. Like my husband's really supportive of being an advocate for children and family, and he's interested in the things that I'm learning and willing to, just be there in all cases.
I kind of thought advocate to protect the rights that the family has. A lot of laws have been passed that we were afraid they're going to. So far, we're still protected, but we need to keep that strong, or else if we lose the rights that we have, it'll take us forever to get them back. Just like with Wilbur, it took him such a long time. He was old and gray, and his friends were dying. He saw what he wanted to get past fulfilled.
Good points. I put like this story, the whole movie and the storyline of each of the characters is a great pattern for our fight right now. I mean, we're up against, hundreds of billions of dollars, and the side of the family has nothing, right? It's like a small group of people, like literally like a room full of people that go to these UN meetings, and they're just a small voice, but they're able to go one on one with all these leaders of countries and help persuade them. That's the only way they can do it right now. But sometimes somebody's gonna break out. I thought that this was a really good way to end our semester with this movie. Um, kind of summing everything up. What was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester versus how it has changed? I'll just go. Basically, what I relied upon is what I've been taught at church. The family, the proclamation of the world, and seminary. Just the basic stuff. Um, eternal families and so forth. Also, being a father, you go through things, but you don't really know what you're up against until you have classes like these. And I'm glad that there's classes like these because it's really changed my perspective on the world and how it actually works. You can't just go bear your testimony to people. I mean, you can, but how effective is that, right? You have to know your facts. You have to know everything there is to know that you can possibly know and grow upon that and show others the data. You know, but that's my understanding now.
And my understanding, what I thought coming into this class was that, we're just going to talk about how to, solve or fight against it or something like that. And I don't know, I kind of wanted to know too much of a threat personally, but sorry if that evoked some feelings, but I learned that advocating for the family is so much more than that there's so much more you can advocate, like children that are being abused, emotional abuse, how it can't be, it's not, there's no punishment for it, but it has the same effects as physical abuse. Um, Children not getting good quality education, that there's just so much more than just gay marriage. And I guess I kind of judged the class because it's a Mormon school. I thought we're just going to talk about gay marriage, and I just have a horrible time. But I had a really good time, And when I coming into the class, I understood, I'll just read what I wrote. I understood that the family was something that God had created for us to find a purpose on this earth. And I now understand that I need to protect the rights of the family because our culture is becoming too individualistic. It's about what we adults want in our lives rather than what's best for the child or even what's best for society as a whole. Yep.
I kind of put the same things like, you know, my understanding of the doctrine of the family, you know, it stemmed a lot from, like you Josh was saying, like the proclamation of the family, all that. And then like the other family classes I've taken at school. So I guess it was, you know, a little more than your average Joe, but I didn't have any sort of like all my information, it wasn't geared at all towards advocacy. It was just like, oh, this is why family's important. This is how it plays into God's plan, which is important, but you know, you have to have this knowledge of advocacy. Otherwise, what good is the information that you have? And like Sonia was saying, it hits on so many aspects of life. Like it's not just, you know, gay marriage. It's you can apply it to everything. So, you know, now I know what things I need to do and what I can do with the knowledge that I've gained in this class. Also, this class kind of scared me a little bit because there's so much to do and the world's a scary place. Yeah.
All amazing points. I love what you guys said. It's just, yeah, there's way more to it than the typical thing that's going on right now. Like anything, not just gay marriage, but just any small, minute little things, you know, like gun control. That's one of them, right? There's so many things that we need to teach our kids about, but they're not being taught in other institutions, you know. And it's up to us. And I love that what we're doing on our Facebook page is, you know, we're giving them other information, like, hey, here's that Common Sense Media. That was rad. I love that thing, you know. It's like, hey, here's some ideas for your family. Oh, okay. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep watching Netflix and, you know, whatever. I mean, not saying that Netflix is bad, but you can get into bad stuff, right? And it's the same thing with our kids. We need to. Anyways, I'm just rambling now. Last question. Picture your spouse and children, current or future, and write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from you taking this class.
For me, I wrote that first, my family's going to be more educated on advocacy, not just the family, but why it's important to be an advocate. And because of the impact that the class has had, it's going to change. Well, it's changed my life, but it's also going to be something that's going to be a continuous part of my life. And it's, you know, my daughter's 3, and so she's going to grow up with this foundation of you need to be an advocate, and I'm kind of excited to see like what that'll do for not just like her, but future children, future generations. Also, I think it's gonna change our words and our actions. Like, if you know, we need to be advocating in everything that we do.
Yeah, I feel like this class benefits me a lot because I can be more of a spiritually strong woman, and not even spiritually, but confidently strong. Strong in my confidence, and that my husband can know that I'm not afraid to speak out for what I know is right. And now that I know I'm obligated to make a difference, not only in my home, but in my community, in media, and wherever else God will take me. I know in my heart I can make my child's world a better place if I do my best and with God's help to advocate for positive changes. And I said in the different sectors of my child's systems as according to Bronfenbrenner. And I thought I can really focus on my child's school, just the things in the community that I need to advocate to make it a better place for them to grow up in, that they can see my example of advocating, that they can do the same for their children, and hopefully that can be passed on from generations.
Yeah, I right now, like this semester, I took communications. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what class it is. It is communications 150. Have you taken that one yet? Anyways, it's a really good class, but it's helped me open up a little bit more, like my communication levels with my spouse and also with my children and those who I associate with. It is perfect timing to take that class along with this class because I've been able to talk to my wife about schooling, and she's actually been interested about it, like these topics, right? Like Waiting for Superman. She'd never seen that. She still hasn't, but I talked to her about it, and she was actually interested in talking about it. And I think this class has opened up a lot of dialogue in my personal relationships with my wife, and that's going to trickle down, you know, to affect our kids. You know, we're going to be a little bit more vigilant about their schooling, and you know, like you guys said, everything that happens inside the home. But so that's the last question. I didn't see anywhere where it says to summarize, but we can quickly do that. In summary, this class has been awesome. Amazing Grace, the movie, it exemplifies exactly what we've been talking about, which is advocacy, in particular advocacy in the home. William Wilberforce is one of those historical figures that needs to be recognized more, and he's up there among the greats for abolishing slavery. And we can learn a lot from the different systems that he and the different roles that he played in. With everybody that he associated with, everybody knew who he was and what he stood for. And then other than that, I mean, I guess that's just a decent summary, right? He wasn't afraid to tell anybody, his opinions and his views, and eventually it paid off because look where we're at today. But anyway, that's that, and this is our hangout. Good job.
Hey, I want to see that picture behind you.
Which one?
That one, though, with you and your kids.
Oh.
What is right?
Oh, this is a new one. Yeah.
I've been eyeing that up.
Oh, they're so cute.
That makes me happy. I love it.
Aren't they handsome?
They are.
They are really handsome.
So stinking cute.
Does your wife have purple or pink in her hair?
Yeah, she's got red, like bright red. It's so funny.
I saw that picture and I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, she's
Are you
been
guys in the same ward? Or?
No.
They were just Facebook friends, that's all.
Okay, yes. Like, what? What's going on?
Is this our second class together or our third?
Yeah, Josh and I go way back to Communication 175.
Yeah.
Way back to last semester.
Yeah. But, hey, have you guys seen my other picture? The one with the family where we're holding our kids' hand?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The shadows, yeah. I like that one a lot. That was really tender.
Yeah, the girl who did that, like, she's amazing. We're just like, oh my gosh, that was perfect.
That gave me all sorts of feels. I was like, oh my god.
Me too.
Everyone needs that picture if they've lost a child.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, one of our friends is actually our son's birth mother. Her sister, or no, her brother lost a child, and they did a picture like that. They're reading a book with their family in a park, and the little boy's shadow is like behind them, like he's looking at it, right? But we saw that and we're like, oh my gosh, we got to do that,
Yeah.
That's
Right.
cool.
All right. Should I stop the broadcast?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.